Bilam had a very, very quick tongue, a very strong tongue. He was, as our Mifarshim, our commentaries explain to us, was the nemesis of Moshe. This week we are starting the 5th book of the 5 books of Moses, the book of Devarim. Now, right at the opening of Devarim, we have to know something very important. The Ramban, the Nachmanides, he reminds us this in his introduction to the book of Deuteronomy. And he says that this book was written by Moses as if Moses is speaking himself. Yes, we see Vaidaber Hashem el Bnei Israel or to Moshe, but this is Moses' interpretation and Moses' mandate to Bnei Israel. If we look through this final book, again, opposed to the first 4, which yes, Moses was the one who wrote it, but that was clearly divinely inspired. This one is no less. However, it's important for us to know that this is Moses himself speaking. Now, if we look through the book, this final book, we do find a lot of repetition to what we have learned previously, the Nachmanides explains. And the reason why he answers, yes, because now this is Moses again teaching it over. Before his passing, this is just over a month, just a little over a month before he passes away. He goes and he reteaches Bnei Israel everything that he learned from God and gives it over. So there is many of the laws which were learned before that he's repeating. However, there is a large number of new laws that appear in this book. Where did they come from? They came from when Moses was up for 40 days and 40 nights, and he learned all of that from God. So the opening line, this week's Torah portion of this book, and I'll quote, this is chapter 1, verse 1, Ele hadevarim, these are the words, Asher diber Moshe el kol Israel be'ever hayarden, that Moses spoke to. He spoke this whole book actually, to all of the Jewish people opposite the Jordan River, meaning before the Jewish people leave Moses, because we know Moses is not entering the land. Before we leave Moses behind and the Jewish people enter in, this is what Moses now comes and tells the Jewish people. What do they tell them? So very cryptic. Bamidbar, in the wilderness. Ba'arava, on a plain. Mol Suf, opposite this place called Suf. Ben Paran uven Tofel v'Lavan, between Paran and between a place called Tofel and Lavan, v'Hatzerot v'Di Zahav. So Moses is about to say something. He's saying something. Where is he? He's on the opposite side of the river, Be'ever HaYarden. What does he say? He mentions 7 places, as we're going to soon see. But he gives 7 different places. Imagine I ask you to give me a direction or give me a crossroad. So you might tell me, okay, Sterling Road and 46th Avenue. Very good. I'm not going to tell you Sterling Road and 46th Avenue between I-95 and 441, between Miami Beach and Palm Beach, and it's also close to the ocean, and it's this, and give you 7 different landmarks of a certain place. So what is Moses actually doing? He's going to say something. He tells us his location, Be'ever HaYarden, and then he goes and he says and he names off 7 different words or places which seem to end up in a very cryptic interpretation or manner. To this, our sages, primarily Rashi, on this verse explains that what Moses was doing is he was rebuking the Jewish people before passing away. Just like a father or a grandfather, as the great leader as Moses actually was, before he left, he wanted to leave with a message. He wanted to leave the Jewish people with a message. So how did he start? He started by rebuking them, admonishing them, criticizing them for their shortcomings over the past 40 years during their wilderness, their wandering in the desert. So this is where he goes. And they explain. So what is Bamidbar? That's when the Jewish people came and as soon as they left Egypt and they find themselves in the wilderness, they complain, what are we brought to the wilderness for? We're brought to a desert. There's nothing here. There's only sand. We should go back home. Ba'arava was the plain by the plains of Moab, which was where the Jewish people worshipped the Baal Peor, where they worshipped idols. Molsuf, opposite the Yam Suf. This is when they complained, before the splitting of the sea, they came and they were cornered by the Egyptians and by the sea. And they scream up and they look at Moses and says, Moses, you should have left us. At least if we would have died in Egypt, we would have had a grave. Here, we're going to be killed. We're just going to be left, or we're going to drown and die in the water and we're going to be forgotten. Next, Paran was the place where they sent the spies from, which we know that wasn't a good outcome. Now, Tofel veLavan, I'm leaving as a question mark for. We'll soon see why, because that's not a place. Number 6, Hatzerot is where Korach, the whole machloket, the whole dispute of Korach happened. And Dizahav is an allusion to the golden calf. So, if we look at our commentary, we look at Rashi, and he quotes Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says, I looked in all of the verses. I cracked open all 5 books, and I could not find a place called Tofel or Lavan. He says, my conclusion is Moses was not admonishing them about a place where a certain sin took place. Rather, he is coming and he's criticizing them for their complaining over the manna that was sent by God to sustain and to feed the Jewish people while they were traveling. Right? When it came down, they said, this is what we're going to have to eat? No. We want meat, we want food, we want fish, we want fruits and vegetables, we want watermelon, we want what we had in Egypt. So because of that, Moses comes and he criticizes them. The Zera Shimshon asks, so what's Moses doing? He's criticizing them for their complaining of the man. And how does he do so? By using the word tofel, which means to complain, and lavan, which means white. Saying that, this man, this Wonder Bread was white. It was white. And that's how he's hinting to tell the Jewish people that you were wrong for complaining for the gift God gave you. The Zera Shimshon says, it sounds pretty weird that the way Moses would hint a certain criticism would be by saying what color it was, or the lack of color that it had, the white. He's asking, is there something special about this white that Moses was rebuking the Jewish people for when it came to the man? He answers as follows. He says, if we look back in Parashat Beha'alotecha, when the Jewish people actually complain, the verse over there, he says, might be a key for us to understand exactly what's going on. And I'll quote. This is in Bamidbar, Numbers, chapter 11, verse 6. This is when the Jewish people complain about having manna and nothing else. Ve'ata, and now nafshenu yivesha en kol. Our bodies are dried out. We don't have anything, alluding to no food. Bilti el haman einenu. We have nothing to see. We have nothing in front of us except this man that you gave us, God. And to this, the Talmud tells us, why would they complain? It was the greatest gift they ever had. Imagine taking a cracker, a wafer, a loaf of bread, and anything you want it to taste like, it would taste like. And any texture you would want it to have, you want it crunchy like an apple, it's crunchy like an apple. You want it soft like ice cream, you want it like cake, you want it like even meat. Anything you want, it would taste like. No, but they were still complaining, Talmud says. So the Talmud in Masechet Shabbat, I'm going to introduce a short concept, and then we'll see how the Zera Shimshon ties it together. There was something that the world population used to do more often than us, and there was a reason for it. We go back 1,000, but more than that, more like 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years ago. There was a common practice of bloodletting. The Talmud, if anyone learns the Talmud, it's something which is often spoken about bloodletting. Imagine going to the doctor, and part of your 6-month or part of your 12-month checkup is you stand there, they put needles into you, and they drain a certain amount of blood out of your body. Now, their rationale was this was healthy for one of two reasons. Either because you're taking out some blood and you're making your blood pump, your heart pump brand new blood into you. But there's I think an easier way to understand it. The type of world that the world used to be was, as much as we think now that nowadays there's a lot of alcoholics and people like drinking wine but it was nothing like the way it used to be. 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 years ago, they used to drink wine more than we drink water nowadays. Not only would they drink wine, they would drink either undiluted wine or something which was considered a great honor. If I would invite you to my house and I would have a barrel of undiluted wine, and on the spot I would dilute it for you. It was something like, Hashuv, you're such an important person, I can do that for you. So their way of life was drinking tremendous amounts of wine, and either undiluted or very lightly diluted wine. The wine that we drink nowadays is more water grape juice than wine compared to back then. So because they were always consuming a lot of, if you want to call it, sulfur and sulfites and just the alcohol and the wine that was getting in their blood, for those reasons, they used to go and do what was called hakazat dam, which is bloodletting. The Talmud says, you know what? The greatest, after a person would do so, it would take, depending on the person's strength, some days, some weeks even to recover from bloodletting. It really drained the person. You know, the Talmud says rejuvenates the person, gives them life back out of all two things: eating meat and drinking wine. And that is what would rejuvenate the person. And the Talmud explains why. It says, nafsha holaf nafsha. That you now have drained the blood out of your body, and you're almost, not dead, but you've removed a lot of the life of you because you're so tired. So to rejuvenate, eat meat, and then that meat is now going to give you more life because you're taking the life of the animal that you're eating from. And the wine is in order to restore the redness in one's blood as well in one's face and skin. And that's why having meat and wine is what was commonly done after a person had their bloodletting procedure, by the doctor, by whoever used to do it. Going back to the Zera Shimshon, he says now, you know what the Jewish people were doing? They were wandering, they were traveling, they were tired, they were exhausted. They came to Moses, they came to God, they said, we're so tired, nothing can rejuvenate us. We need a steak and a glass of wine. This man is not going to do it for us. So why did Moses allude to the man as the white? Because they came and they were complaining. They were complaining about this man, but really this man, the Zera Shimshon says, could have quenched their hunger for meat because it could taste like meat, but not the wine. They weren't happy enough with just the white. Look how interesting his interpretation is. They weren't happy with just the lavan, just the white. They weren't complaining that the man was no good. It just wasn't enough. The man was great. The man could taste like a steak. It could taste like a hamburger. It could taste like ribs. It could taste like whatever you want. But they weren't appeased with just the white. They wanted the red. They wanted the wine as well. That's one interpretation. He gives another one, and I think we're all going to enjoy this one a little more. And he says as follows. Gemara in Masechet Ketubot says, it's greater to smile to a person than to give them a cup of milk. Because the white in one's teeth, when you smile at somebody, that's something that gives someone a lot more than even a glass of cold, fresh, healthy milk. The power of a smile. So the simple interpretation is, well, when you smile at somebody, You make them feel good. Making them feel good with some type of even feeling and emotion is greater than a gift, because I give you a gift, you could eat it, you could lose it, you could break it, you could sell it. But when I make you feel good, that's something that's everlasting. That's a simple interpretation, but the Zera Shimshon takes it a little deeper. He says that when you smile at somebody, when you make them feel good, you are displaying your friendship, your support, and your love for that individual. And that is something which is greater than any gift, even a beautiful, juicy, fresh glass of milk. The smile of one's teeth. So look how Moses was hinting in his rebuke to the Jewish people. He says, God was smiling down at you, the Jewish people, every single day. He could have given you black bread. I don't know, whenever someone serves me, or if I ever see black rye bread or pumpernickel bread, however you want to call it, it's not as appeasing as white bread. And then there's whole wheat and multigrain, but there's nothing like white. Whether you're on a diet or not, don't worry, no one's listening, no one's looking, but there's nothing like white bread. God could have given them anything. He could have given them something which was not so white. Moshe Rabbeinu says God was smiling. White of the bread, like the white of one's teeth. He was smiling on a daily basis. Even though you were wandering, even though you were in the wilderness, even though you were subjugated to 40 years of wandered and scattered in the desert until you get to the land of Israel. But he was still smiling down every single day. So his rebuke with using the word white was to say, how could you not be happy with what God's giving you? He's smiling, he's blessing you, he's doing it out of love, support, and even friendship. So this is a tremendous lesson to each and every one of us. In our lives, this works from us to others, and this works from God to us. Meaning, when we deal with others, we have to always remember the importance of putting on a smile. It's free, it's contagious, it's something which makes you feel loved and beloved towards them, and vice versa. But I say a deeper message, that when God does things to us, sometimes he blesses us, and sometimes we seem that he's not blessing us. We look at it and we say, oh, this is not a blessing. Like wandering in the desert. Like losing something. Losing somebody. Having a hard time in life. A struggle. Yet it's our duty to look at what's going on and see, how is God really smiling down at me? It's just a wafer. It's just a piece of bread. It's just the manna. But it was white. Alluding to the white in one's teeth and the smile. And that's when Moses was coming down and rebuking. So these are two different answers that Zera Shimshon is giving. The first answer he was given was really on, they complained that the bread, the man was good. It was amazing, but it wasn't good enough. They wanted also wine. The second interpretation is no. They were really complaining that the bread wasn't good enough. That wasn't able to quench their thirst, their hunger, their tiredness. They wanted more because they did not see the smile of God every single morning when they woke up. When we wake up in the morning, we say Modeh Ani. There's a proper tradition that when you say Modeh Ani, you should look out the window and look at the sky. And smile. God smiling down on us every day. Every day the sun rises. Every day we open our eyes. Every day we're able to look at our spouses, our children, our friends, our family, and smile at them. It is God smiling down at us. May we always be blessed to find God's smile in our lives.